Every single morning in the Great Hall of Valhalla, a warrior is brutally killed. He is torn limb from limb, pierced by 100 spears, his lifeblood staining the eternal fields of battle. And yet, by sundown, he is whole again. He is laughing, drinking, and feasting alongside the very men who just slaughtered him. This isn't a punishment. This isn't hell. For the ancient Norse, this was paradise. This was the ultimate reward for a life of courage and a death in glorious combat. But this brutal, endless cycle of death and rebirth begs a terrifying question. Why? Why would the all-powerful god Odin construct an afterlife built on perpetual violence? What was the true purpose of this immortal army, training day after day, century after century? The answer points to a single cataclysmic event that even the gods feared. An apocalyptic war at the end of time that Valhalla itself was built to fight. And the identity of their final enemy is something far darker than you can possibly imagine. To understand this warrior's heaven, we have to journey back into the smoke-filled halls and frozen battlefields of the Viking Age. The concept of Valhalla doesn't come from a single neat book. It's a phantom pieced together from fragments of ancient poems and chilling sagas, whispered down through generations. These texts, like the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, aren't just history. They're a window into the soul of a people who lived in a world of unforgiving hardship. For them, life was a battle, and a glorious death was not an end, but a promotion. So, how did one secure a reservation in Odin's exclusive club? The price of admission was steep, and it could only be paid in one currency: blood. You couldn't be a king who died of old age in his bed. You couldn't be a farmer who succumbed to sickness. You had to be a warrior, and you had to die in the fury of combat, with a weapon in your hand and a war cry on your lips. The Norse believed that in the final chaotic moments of a shield wall, as swords clashed and axes fell, a dying warrior might look up and see them. The Valkyries. They were not the soft, angelic figures we might imagine. The name itself means chooser of the slain. These were terrifyingly beautiful, armor-clad battle maidens, riding swift horses through the sky, their coming a sign of impending death. To see a Valkyrie on the battlefield meant your thread of life had been cut by the fates. But it also meant you had been judged worthy. They were Odin's talent scouts, descending into the heart of the carnage to select the fiercest, bravest souls to serve their king. Imagine the final moments of a Viking warrior. He's bleeding out on the cold ground, the sounds of battle fading. He looks up, and through the chaos, he sees a radiant figure on a winged steed. She reaches for him, and in that instant, his pain vanishes. His struggle is over. He has been chosen. The journey from the mortal world, from Midgard to the realm of the gods, Asgard, was instantaneous. The newly chosen warrior, now known as an Einherjar, one of Odin's lone fighters, would find himself before the gates of Valhalla itself, and the sight would have been beyond anything a mortal mind could comprehend. Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain, was a structure of impossible savage grandeur. Its massive roof was not tiled with slate or shingles, but thatched with gleaming golden shields. The rafters holding up this immense weight were not made of timber, but of perfectly straight, impossibly long spears. The benches where the warriors would feast were draped in coats of mail, the polished chainmail shimmering like a river of steel in the firelight. The hall was so vast that it was said to have 540 doors, each one wide enough for 800 warriors to march through, shoulder to shoulder at the same time. This wasn't just architecture, it was a statement. This was a fortress, a barracks for an army of gods and men, built for a war of unimaginable scale. And at the head of this hall, upon a high throne, sat the master of it all, Odin, the All-Father. He was not a benevolent, forgiving god. He was a god of war, of wisdom, of poetry, and of death. A relentless seeker of knowledge who sacrificed one of his own eyes for a single drink from the well of wisdom. He was the strategist, the general, the king who was gathering the greatest army the cosmos had ever known. But Odin himself did not partake in the feasts of Valhalla. He consumed no food, only wine, and the meat from his table he gave to his two loyal wolves, Jerry and Freki, who sat always at his feet. His focus was singular, his gaze distant, as if he were perpetually watching a chessboard the size of the universe, planning his moves for the final game. Life for the Einherjar settled into a glorious, brutal routine. Every day, at the crow of the rooster gulling Camby, the golden-combed cockerel, the warriors would awaken. They would don their armor, take up their weapons, and march out from those 540 doors onto the vast plains of Avor. There they would fight. Not a mock battle, not a tournament, but a genuine, all-out war against each other. They would spend the entire day in joyous bloody combat. Limbs were severed, heads were taken, bodies were impaled. They fought with all the skill and fury that had earned them their place there in the first place, dying 1,000 different ways, only to rise again. And as the sun began to set, a miracle would occur. No matter how grievous their injuries, every wound would instantly heal. Every severed limb would be restored. Every fallen warrior would rise to his feet, completely whole. The animosity of the battlefield would vanish, replaced by the camaraderie of the shield brother. Laughing and joking, they would walk back to the great hall, their bodies hale and their spirits high, ready for the second part of their reward, the feast. The feast in Valhalla was as epic as the battle that preceded it. The Einherjar would take their seats on the mail-covered benches, and the Valkyries who had chosen them on the battlefield would now serve them. They brought endless horns of the finest mead, a drink so potent and magical it could only come from a divine source. And it did. The endless supply of mead flowed from the udders of a cosmic goat named Ern, who stood on the roof of Valhalla, nibbling on the leaves of the great world tree Yggdrasil. The main course was even more extraordinary. Every night, the warriors feasted on the meat of a giant, cosmic boar called Saehrimnir. The divine chef, Andrimnir, would slaughter and cook the boar in his cauldron, Eldrimnir, providing more than enough succulent meat for the thousands of hungry warriors. And the next morning, Saehrimnir the boar would be alive and whole again, ready to be cooked for that evening's feast. An endless cycle of combat, death, resurrection, and feasting. This was the life of an Einherjar, a life of pure, distilled warrior spirit, stripped of all mortal fear and consequence. It was a perfect existence. But it was an existence with a singular, terrifying purpose. Every swing of the axe on the training fields, every drop of mead drunk in celebration, was preparation. Odin wasn't gathering heroes to reward them for their past deeds. He was gathering soldiers for a future war. He was building this army of the dead because he knew that a day was coming when the forces of chaos would rise. A day of frost and fire, of wolves that would devour the sun and the moon. A day when the great serpent Jormungandr would release its own tail and poison the seas. This was the day of Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods. And Odin knew that the army of Valhalla would be the last line of defense for the world of gods and men. But the Valkyries did not claim every slain hero from the battlefield. Odin, for all his power, only received half of the chosen. The other half, selected by a powerful and mysterious goddess of love, beauty, and war, were taken to a completely different afterlife. A place that was Valhalla's equal, yet shrouded in far more mystery. And their purpose in the final war is one of the most debated secrets in all of Norse mythology. This mysterious realm is known as Folkvangr, the field of the people, and at its heart stands Sessrumnir, the hall of many seats. And here's the detail that changes everything we think we know about the Norse afterlife. When a battle ends and the Valkyries descend to choose the slain, Odin does not get the first pick. Freyja does. According to the ancient texts, the goddess of love, fertility, and war claims one half of the warriors slain in combat for her own hall. Odin receives the other half. This isn't a footnote, it's a fundamental rule of the cosmos. So for every legendary hero who feasted in Odin's hall, there was another, equally valiant warrior, who pledged their sword to Freyja. This raises a monumental question. Why? Why does the goddess most associated with love and beauty need an army? Odin's goal is clear. He is assembling the ultimate fighting force to stand against the giants and monsters at Ragnarök, the final, world-ending battle. But Freyja's purpose is never explicitly stated. Her army in Folkvangr is one of the great what-ifs of Norse mythology. Some scholars believe her warriors serve a defensive purpose, perhaps to protect the realm of the gods, Vanaheim, from which she hails. Others propose a more radical theory, that in the chaos of Ragnarök, when Odin and his forces are locked in a death struggle with Loki's horde, Freyja's army will act as a final secret reserve, a devastating trump card that no one, not even the giants, sees coming. A force of warriors chosen not just for their skill with a blade, but perhaps for a different kind of strength, a loyalty bound not by a thirst for glory, but by a devotion to the goddess of life itself. Whatever their ultimate purpose, their selection process was the same. A warrior fell, their lifeblood staining the earth, their last breath a ragged gasp. And in that moment between worlds they would see them, the Valkyries, the choosers of the slain. These weren't gentle angels, they were formidable shield maidens, divine warrior women clad in armor, their approach heralded by a strange, shimmering light in the sky, a light the Vikings would later call the Aurora Borealis. For half the fallen, the Valkyries would guide their souls to Folkvanger, but for the other half, the journey was to Valhalla. These chosen warriors, now known as the Einherjar, the lone fighters or those who fight in an army, were about to enter a reality beyond their wildest mortal comprehension. Their journey began on the battlefield, lifted from their broken bodies by the Valkyries. They were carried across the sky, over the mortal world of Midgard, and toward Asgard, the home of the gods. To get there, they had to cross the Bifrost, the legendary burning rainbow bridge that connects the realms. This wasn't a gentle, ethereal structure. The myths describe it as a bridge of 3 shimmering colors, intensely hot to the touch, built by the gods to keep the frost giants out. Its strength was absolute, and it was guarded day and night by the ever-watchful god Heimdall. Once across the bridge, the path to Valhalla wasn't yet clear. It was a fortress within a fortress. The hall itself was surrounded by the roaring river Thund, a body of water so violent and swift that it was nearly impossible to cross. Its currents were filled with weapons and the cries of the unworthy who failed to make the passage. Only the chosen, guided by the Valkyries, could navigate its treacherous waters. And then they would see the gates. Not one but 540 of them. Each gate was so immense that 800 warriors could march through it, shoulder to shoulder at the same time. This wasn't just for dramatic effect, it was a practical design. At the dawn of Ragnarök, the entire army of the Einherjar would need to pour out of the hall at a moment's notice to meet their doom on the battlefield of Adur. The scale was a statement of purpose. Standing before those gates, a newly chosen warrior would finally look up at the great hall itself, and the sight would have been staggering, a masterpiece of divine brutalist architecture. The roof was not made of thatch or wood. It was an overlapping wall of gleaming golden shields, catching the light of Asgard in a way that would blind a mortal man. The rafters that held up this impossible roof were not beams of oak, but colossal, perfectly straight spears, their tips sharpened to a deadly point. And inside, the great hall stretched on for what seemed like an eternity. The long benches where the warriors would sit were not covered in furs or cloth, but were draped in coats of shining chainmail. The light within the hall didn't come from fires or torches. It came from the polished gleam of drawn swords, held aloft by the thousands upon thousands of warriors already there, their collective radiance illuminating the cavernous space. This was a place built from the tools of war. Every single element, from the roof to the seating to the light itself, was a reminder of a warrior's purpose. It was a declaration that this was not a place of peaceful rest. It was a barracks for the greatest army ever assembled. It was a weapon in and of itself. But as the new arrivals' eyes adjusted, they would notice other, stranger inhabitants. This hall was not just for men and gods. Perched on the great roof was a goat named Erin, and she wasn't just any goat. From her udders flowed not milk, but an endless supply of the finest, strongest mead, which poured down into a massive vat within the hall for the Einherjar to drink every night. Nearby, a great stag, Eikerner, also stood upon the roof, nibbling at the leaves of the great world tree Yggdrasil. From his antlers dripped a constant supply of pure water, which flowed down to form the source of all the rivers in all the 9 realms. The very lifeblood of the cosmos originated here, above the Hall of the Slain. And in the great kitchens, a single man was responsible for feeding this entire endless army. His name was Andrimner, the divine chef. Every day, he would take his cauldron, Eldrimner, and prepare a feast. The main course was always the same: the flesh of a monstrous boar named Sarimnir. What was truly miraculous was that no matter how much of the boar was carved away and eaten by the thousands of hungry warriors, by the next morning, Sarimnir was whole and alive again, ready to be cooked and consumed once more. An endless supply of mead from a cosmic goat, an eternal feast from a resurrected boar, all served in a hall built from shields and spears. The newly arrived warrior had made it. They were an Einherjar, a chosen champion of Odin. They had entered the warrior's paradise. But this paradise came with a brutal daily price. A price paid in blood and bone every single day, only to be erased and repeated at sundown. What was this eternal violent routine? And why was it absolutely necessary to forge them into the weapons Odin would need to face the end of the world? The day in Valhalla begins not with the gentle rays of dawn, but with the piercing cry of a rooster. Not just any rooster. This is Gulling Camby, the golden comb, whose crow is a clarion call that rips through the dreams of the dead. It is the signal that the glorious, brutal work is about to begin again. There is no groaning, no reluctance. The Einherjar, the chosen slain, rise from their benches instantly whole, their bodies bearing no trace of the previous day's slaughter. The aches are gone, the wounds are sealed, the fatigue is a forgotten memory. All that remains is a primal, insatiable hunger. Not for food, not yet, but for battle. They don their armor, the same mail that failed them in their mortal life. Now somehow stronger, more resilient. They grasp the same axes and swords that delivered their final wound, now feeling like perfect extensions of their own arms. A low murmur builds within the great hall, a hum of anticipation that grows into a thunderous roar. They pour out of Valhalla's 540 massive doors, 800 warriors abreast from each one, a tide of spectral steel and immortal fury flooding the plains of Asgard. Their destination is the great field of Avor, a vast open expanse whose name means Splendor Plain. But there is no splendor here now. There is only the grim promise of violence. The field is so large it seems to have no horizon, and it is already filled with their brethren, a sea of champions stretching as far as the eye can see. Kings stand shoulder to shoulder with farmers, legendary berserkers with common shield-bearers. On this field, mortal rank means nothing. All that matters is skill, courage, and the will to kill. There is no formal command to begin. The battle simply erupts. It is a spontaneous, chaotic explosion of violence that engulfs the entire plain in an instant. The sound is deafening, a symphony of screaming, the percussive crash of shield against shield, the wet, percussive thud of an axe finding a home in a skull, and the high-pitched shriek of steel scraping against bone. This is not a sport. It is not a drill. It is a genuine, no-holds-barred slaughter. A warrior who was a legend in his own time charges forward, his great axe scything through the front line. He cleaves one man from shoulder to hip, the body falling in two steaming pieces. He turns, parries a sword thrust, and buries his axe in the face of his attacker. But from his blind spot, a spear finds its way through a gap in his mail, punching through his lung. He coughs blood, a surprised look on his face, before another warrior decapitates him with a single fluid stroke. His head rolls across the blood-soaked grass, his legendary life ending for the 1000th time. He will be back tomorrow. Everywhere you look, it is the same. Limbs are severed and fly through the air. Shields are splintered into kindling. Warriors fight on with horrific wounds, driven by a battle lust that death itself could not quench. They stab, they hack, they wrestle in the mud and gore, gouging at eyes and tearing at throats with their bare hands. They are testing each other, pushing their skills to the absolute limit and beyond. They are learning every dirty trick, every feint, every possible way a man can be killed, and every way a man can kill. They are not just fighting each other, they are fighting the very concept of their own limitations. This brutal ballet continues all day. Warriors fall, and others step over their corpses to continue the fray. The field becomes a charnel house, a landscape of the dead and dying. By the time the sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting long bloody shadows across the plain, the battle has reached its gruesome crescendo. Every single warrior, from the mightiest champion to the newest arrival, has been slain. The great field of Avlor falls silent, littered with hundreds of thousands of broken bodies, a testament to a day of absolute carnage. But then as dusk settles, the magic of Odin's hall takes hold. A soft light seems to emanate from the very ground. A severed arm twitches, then slides across the grass to reattach itself to its torso. A gaping chest wound weaves itself shut, leaving unblemished skin behind. A head rolls back to its shoulders, the neck knitting itself together seamlessly. All across the field, the dead begin to stir. They sit up, feeling the life flow back into them, the fire rekindled in their veins. They look at their bodies now perfectly whole, and then they look at each other. The man who had just caved in his neighbor's skull with a hammer now helps him to his feet. The warrior who ran his best friend through with a spear now claps him on the back, laughing. All animosity is gone, instantly erased by the magic of rebirth. There is no anger, no grudge. There is only a deep shared respect. They have all given and received death today. They have tested each other's mettle in the most extreme way imaginable and found it worthy. They are brothers forged in a crucible of daily death. Together, they begin the walk back to the great hall, their armor miraculously repaired, their weapons pristine. They are exhausted but exhilarated, their hunger for battle now replaced by a colossal hunger for food and drink. As they approach Valhalla, the scent of roasting meat and brewing mead washes over them. They enter the hall not as enemies, but as a single unified army. And the feast that awaits them is as epic as the battle they just survived. At the center of the hall, a great fire pit roars, and over it turns the carcass of a monstrous boar. This is Saramnir, the eternal feast. Every day, he is slain and cooked by the god chef, Andrimnir, in his great cauldron Eldrimnir. His flesh is so plentiful it can feed the entire host of Einherjar to their fill. And by the next morning, Saramnir is alive and whole again, ready to be sacrificed once more. Their drinking horns are never empty. They are filled with the finest, most potent mead in all the 9 realms, flowing not from barrels, but from the udders of a goat. This is the goat Ern who stands on the roof of Valhalla, nibbling the leaves of the great world tree. From her, an endless river of mead pours down into a great vat within the hall, ensuring the warrior's thirst is always quenched. The beautiful, formidable Valkyries move among the long tables, serving the warriors, their otherworldly presence, a constant reminder of the honor of being chosen. The Einherjar feast, drink, and boast of their deeds from the day's battle. They recount the clever moves, the heroic charges, and the spectacular deaths they witnessed and inflicted. Laughter and song echo off the shield-covered walls. This is their reward. This is the paradise they earned. But it is a paradise with a deadly purpose. Every element of this daily cycle is a calculated part of Odin's grand strategy. The endless battle isn't cruelty, it's conditioning. It strips away the fear of death, the hesitation in the face of pain. A soldier who knows he will rise again, whole and hale, by evening is a soldier who will never retreat, never surrender, never flinch. The feast isn't just a reward, it's sustenance. It rebuilds their bodies and spirits, refueling them for the next day's training, ensuring they are always at peak physical and mental condition. Valhalla is not a retirement home for heroes. It is the ultimate military academy. Every day of slaughter, every night of feasting is a rehearsal. It is practice for the one performance that will ever matter. Odin is not just collecting soldiers. He is forging them into something more than human, something that can stand against giants and monsters when the final trumpet sounds. He is building an army that does not fear death, because they have made death their daily routine. The Einherjar are the heart of this army, the frontline soldiers in the war for existence. But they are not the only residents of this great golden hall. An entire ecosystem exists to support this eternal training ground, populated by beings as strange and wondrous as the warrior ghosts themselves. Who is the chef who cooks the cosmic boar? What other creatures wander these hallowed, blood-soaked corridors? And what other secrets does the Allfather keep within the walls of his Hall of the Slain? The man who holds the ladle in this Hall of Gods and Ghosts is known as Andrimnir. His name means the one with a sooty face, and you can imagine why. He is the master chef of the afterlife, a figure as crucial to Odin's plan as any Valkyrie. Day after day, in the roaring heat of Valhalla's kitchens, he performs a culinary miracle. His work is not for the faint of heart. He doesn't cook for a dozen kings or 100 lords. He cooks for an army that grows by the hundreds, every single day for thousands of years. An army of the hungriest, most ravenous souls to ever walk the 9 realms. Andrimnir's primary tool, his great secret, is a cauldron of immense power and size. It is called Eldrimnir, the fire sooty. This is no ordinary pot. It is a relic of cosmic significance, large enough to boil a beast that could feed a city. And into this cauldron every single day, Andrimnir places the flesh of the magnificent boar, Saramnir. Saramnir is the eternal feast. Every morning, the chef slaughters this colossal beast and carves its meat. He stews it in the great cauldron, creating a meal so rich and savory that it can restore the weary spirit of any warrior. The Einherjar, after a full day of joyous, bloody combat, feast upon Saramnir's flesh, and it is said to be the most delicious meat in all of existence. But here is the magic, the core of this divine cycle. No matter how many thousands of warriors eat their fill, no matter how much they consume, by the next morning, the boar Saramnir is whole and alive again, ready to be sacrificed once more for the great feast. This is the nature of Valhalla. It is a place of glorious, violent, and delicious repetition. A perfect loop designed to keep Odin's army at peak strength and morale. The constant supply of food from Saramnir ensures that the Einherjar never hunger, that their bodies, even in death, are strong and ready for the final war. Andrimnir, the sooty-faced chef, is the steward of this crucial miracle, the man who fuels the engines of Ragnarök with ladle and knife. But the feast is more than just meat. What is a warrior's banquet without drink? What use is a full belly if the throat is dry and the spirit is not lifted? Odin, in his infinite wisdom, provided for this as well. But the source of Valhalla's drink is not found in a cellar or a storehouse. For that we must look up. Up, past the rafters carved with serpents and heroes, past the ceiling made of golden shields, and onto the very roof of the great hall itself. For atop Valhalla, in the strange ethereal twilight of Asgard, live two creatures of profound importance. The first is a goat. Her name is Erin. She stands upon the roof, calmly chewing on the leaves of a great tree that grows there, a tree called Rar, whose branches are said to spread across the world. But this is no ordinary goat, and she gives no ordinary milk. From her udders flows not milk, but a constant, unending river of the finest mead imaginable. This celestial mead pours down from the roof of Valhalla, collected into a vast vat within the hall, a reservoir of liquid joy so large that it can quench the thirst of all the Einherjar combined, and never ever run dry. Every warrior is given a horn, often elaborately carved from the horns of great beasts, and they can drink their fill of Erin's magical mead. It is said to be potent and sweet, capable of washing away the memory of the day's fatal wounds and filling the soul with courage and camaraderie. It is the social lubricant of the afterlife, the fuel for the boasting, the songs, and the laughter that echo through the great hall each night. The goat Erin, placidly chewing on the world tree's leaves, is the source of Valhalla's endless revelry. Next to her, also grazing on the leaves of the tree Rar, stands another magnificent creature, a great stag, a buck of immense size and power. His name is Einherjar, meaning oak-thorny, a name that speaks to his massive, branching antlers that seem to scrape the Asgardian sky. Like the goat, the stag is part of this cosmic ecosystem functioning on Valhalla's roof. But his purpose is even grander, his contribution reaching far beyond the walls of the hall. Einherjar eats from the world tree, and as he does, a great moisture, a divine dew, drips from the tines of his mighty antlers. It is not mead but pure clear water, and it does not fall into the hall. It falls down from the heights of Asgard, trickling into the world below. This dripping from his horns is the source of all the rivers in all the 9 realms. It is the wellspring of Hvergelmir, the bubbling, boiling source in Nibelheim from which all waters flow. Think of it. Every river a Viking ever crossed, every fjord they ever sailed, every stream from which they drank, had its ultimate origin in the dew dripping from the antlers of a cosmic stag, standing on the roof of the Hall of the Slain, at the very center of the god's domain. Valhalla is not just a destination. It is a linchpin of the cosmos. Its roof is a garden of mythological marvels, a self-sustaining paradise. The tree Rar provides the nourishment. The goat Erin provides the endless mead for the warriors within, and the stag Einherjar provides the water for all the worlds below. It is a breathtakingly beautiful and interconnected vision. The afterlife of heroes is not a static place. It is a living, breathing nexus point that sustains both the warriors preparing for the end times and the very fabric of the universe itself. So we have the chef Andrimnir, the ever-reviving boar Saramnir for strength, the meat goat Erin for morale, the river stag Einherjar, connecting the hall to all of creation. These are the creatures that sustain the great waiting. They are the support staff, the living miracles that make Odin's grand army possible. But there is one more creature of note, not a beast of sustenance but of prophecy, not one that feeds the warriors, but one that will one day call them to their final duty. Perched high on the gables of Valhalla, higher even than the goat and the stag, sits a rooster. He is not a common farm bird. His comb is made of gleaming, brilliant gold. His name is Gullinkambi, the golden comb. He does not crow to greet the dawn. The concept of a simple sunrise has little meaning in this timeless realm. He is silent. He watches. He waits. For millennia he has stood his post, a golden sentinel against the coming twilight. He is Odin's alarm clock for the end of the world, because the legends say that on the day that Ragnarök begins, when the giants breach the walls of Asgard and the great wolf Fenrir breaks his chains, Gullinkambi will finally crow. His call will not be a simple farmyard sound. It will be a blast of pure golden fury, a clarion call that will echo through the 9 realms, a sound that will shake the foundations of the Great Hall itself. It is the one sound that every single warrior inside, from the first hero chosen to the last, has been waiting to hear. It is the signal that the feasting is over. The training is complete. The wait is done. What does that sound trigger? What happens in that instant when the golden comb finally crows? How does an army of the dead, content in their daily cycle of battle and drink, transform into the final defense of the gods? And what is that daily life of battle truly like? What does it mean to die and die again, all in preparation for one single unwinnable war? The answer lies not in a grand singular transformation, but in a daily, brutal, and relentless grind. It is a process of unmaking and remaking, a forging of souls in a crucible of endless slaughter. To understand the Einherjar, you must first understand their day. There is no gentle dawn in Valhalla. The sun does not rise, it erupts. Light crashes through the 540 doors of the Great Hall, not as a soft glow, but as a silent, concussive blast that banishes all shadow. For the warriors within, sleep is not a respite but a brief pause in a symphony of violence. And the conductor is always on time. Before the last dregs of mead-fueled dreams can fade, a sound cuts through the morning air. It is the crowing of the rooster gulling Cambi, the golden comb. His call is not a gentle wake-up but a clarion call to war, a sound that echoes off the shield-thatched roof and shakes the very foundations of Asgard. In an instant, thousands upon thousands of warriors are on their feet. There are no groans, no stretches, no slow awakenings. The muscle memory of a lifetime of battle takes over. They are not men waking for a day's labor. They are weapons being drawn from their sheaths. They arm themselves in a thunderous cacophony of steel and leather. The air hums with the sharpening of axes, the cinching of mail, the snapping of shield straps. They don't speak. There is no need for strategy, no discussion of tactics. The objective is simple, universal, and understood by every soul in the hall. Kill and be killed. They pour from the massive gates, a river of iron and fury, onto the vast, waiting plains of Idaval. This is their training ground, their arena, their abattoir. And here, the rules of mortal combat are not just broken. They are gleefully annihilated. There are no shield walls, no organized formations, no honorable duels. This is pure, unrestrained chaos. It is a maelstrom of violence where every man is for himself. A hero of the Viking age who died with a dozen arrows in his chest might find himself fighting alongside a Roman legionary who fell at Teutoburg Forest, or a Celtic chieftain who defied Caesar. Their past lives, their old allegiances, are meaningless. Here they are all just Einherjar. And the fighting is a thing of terrible beauty. It is the art of war perfected and practiced for eternity. An axe that would have split a Viking shield in the mortal world now cleaves through a helmet and skull as if they were parchment. A spear thrown with the force of a demigod doesn't just pierce a man. It punches through him and the 3 men standing behind him. Warriors who were legends on earth are now common soldiers in a legion of legends. They tear each other apart. Limbs are severed, heads are lopped from shoulders, bodies are hacked into unrecognizable pieces. A warrior might charge forward, roaring a battle cry, only to be cut in half at the waist, his cry turning into a wet gurgle as his top half hits the bloody soil. Another might parry a sword strike perfectly, only to be impaled from behind by a forgotten foe. Death comes swiftly, brutally, and without ceremony. By what mortals would call midday, the field of Idaval is a charnel house. It is a landscape of gore, a testament to the sheer, unadulterated violence that these chosen warriors can inflict upon one another. The ground is slick with blood and littered with the pieces of heroes. But this is Valhalla, and in Valhalla, death is not an end. It is an intermission. As the day wears on, a strange magic begins to work. A severed arm lying 50 feet from its owner twitches. A deep gash on a fallen warrior's chest begins to knit itself together, flesh and muscle weaving a tapestry of resurrection. A head, its eyes still staring blankly at the sky, rolls back towards its neck, the vertebrae realigning with an audible series of clicks. This is the miracle and the curse of the Einherjar. No matter how grievous the wound, no matter how complete the dismemberment, they are made whole again. Imagine the sensation. One moment, the cold finality of a spear through your heart. The next, a warmth spreading through your chest as the hole closes, the heart muscle kicking back into its rhythm. You feel the phantom pain of a lost limb, only to look down and see it perfectly reattached. the sinews reconnected, the blood flowing freely once more. For the Einherjar, the agony of death is a familiar sting, a daily annoyance they have grown accustomed to. It is the price of admission for the training. Why? Why this endless gruesome cycle? Because Odin is not building an army. He is forging a single unified weapon. Every death is a lesson. The warrior who was careless and got stabbed in the back learns to check his surroundings. The one whose shield was shattered learns to angle it better. The one who was too slow with his axe learns to be faster. They are not just fighting, they are perfecting the act of killing on a cosmic scale. They are learning every possible variation of combat, every dirty trick, every desperate maneuver. They are conditioning themselves to fight through unimaginable pain, to see their comrades dismembered and feel no fear, only a renewed focus on the enemy in front of them. They are being stripped of their mortal limitations, their fear of death, their need for self-preservation, and rebuilt as perfect immortal killing machines. When the day of battle is done, when every warrior has died at least once and been reborn from their own bloody remains, the horn sounds again. But this time it is not the call to war. It is the call to feast. The warriors, now whole and unblemished, their armor miraculously repaired, walk off the field of slaughter. They laugh and clap each other on the back. The man who beheaded you an hour ago is now your drinking companion. They leave the carnage behind, knowing it will be gone by morning, the field pristine and ready for another day of death. They return to the great hall, and what a sight it is! The long tables are laden with food and drink. The centerpiece of this eternal feast is the great boar, Saramnir. Every evening, he is slain by the cook Andrimnir and boiled in the cauldron Eldrimnir. His flesh is so plentiful it can feed the entire host of Einherjar to their fill. And every morning, Saramnir is whole again, ready to be cooked for the next night's feast. Their drinking horns are never empty. They are filled with the finest, most potent mead, flowing endlessly from the udders of the goat Ern. She stands upon the roof of Valhalla, nibbling the leaves of the great world tree Yggdrasil, and from her, the river of mead that sustains the warrior's spirits is born. And here, in the warmth and light of the feasting hall, the second half of their training begins. They boast of their deeds on the field that day. They recount their most spectacular kills, their most dramatic deaths. This isn't mere bragging, it is tactical debriefing disguised as revelry. They learn from each other's triumphs and failures, absorbing centuries of combat experience in a single night of storytelling. They forge bonds stronger than any forged in the mortal world, a brotherhood born not of shared life, but of shared repeated death. And watching over it all is Odin. The Allfather sits at the head table, but he does not eat. He takes his portion of the boar's meat and places it on the floor for his two wolves, Jerry and Freki, the ravenous and the greedy. Odin himself subsists on nothing but wine. He does not partake in the feast because he is not there to celebrate. He is there to watch. His one eye scans the hall, observing his warriors, gauging their morale, measuring their progress. He is the general reviewing his troops, the architect admiring his grand, bloody design, all while his two ravens, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory, whisper the secrets of the 9 realms into his ears. This is the life of an Einherjar, a perfect, repeating cycle of glorious death and glorious revelry. It is a paradise for a warrior, an existence stripped down to its two most essential components, the fight and the feast. But this perfect cycle begs a terrifying question. What happens to a soul subjected to this for centuries, for millennia? Does the constant death and rebirth erode their sanity, turning them into something other than human? And if this is the glorious reward for the chosen few, what fate awaits the vast, unchosen majority of the dead? The truth is, Valhalla was never meant for everyone. It's not a heaven open to the worthy, it's a military barracks for the hyper-elite, a pre-deployment staging ground for the end of the world. For the vast majority of people in the Norse world, the farmers, the merchants, the craftsmen, the women and children who died in their beds of sickness or old age, the gates of Odin's hall were forever closed. Their fate lay elsewhere. And this is where the Norse cosmos gets truly fascinating, because Valhalla isn't even the only option for a warrior. Before a single Valkyrie can lay a hand on a fallen hero, another, even more powerful goddess gets her choice. Her name is Freyja, and she claims one half of all those slain in battle for her own hall, in her own realm of Folkvanger, the field of the people. The texts are explicit. Freyja gets the first pick. Odin gets what's left. Think about that for a second. The Allfather, the chief of the gods, gets the second-round draft picks. The prime warriors, the absolute cream of the crop, go with Freya. So what is this place, Folkvanger? Unlike Valhalla, which is described in gritty, bloody detail, Folkvanger is more mysterious. We know it's a beautiful, sprawling meadow or field. We know her hall within it is called Sessrumner, the hall of many seats. But the daily routine isn't laid out for us. Is it a mirror of Valhalla, filled with endless training and fighting? Or is it something else? Freya is a complex goddess. She is a deity of war, yes, but also of love, beauty, and fertility. It's possible her hall was a more balanced afterlife, where the glories of life were celebrated alongside the glories of battle. But this raises an even bigger question. Why is Freya building an army? We know what Odin's Einherjar are for. They are the frontline defense against the forces of chaos at Ragnarök. So what is Freya's purpose? Is she building a reserve force? A separate flank for the final battle? Or is her army intended for a different conflict entirely, one the myths don't tell us about? The fact that the goddess of love is hoarding half of the world's best warriors is one of the most tantalizing and unanswered questions in all of Norse mythology. It suggests that even Odin doesn't have a complete monopoly on power or on the preparations for the end times. So you have two elite afterlives for warriors, Valhalla and Folkvanger. But what about everyone else? What about the man who died of a fever, or the woman who died in childbirth, or the old chieftain who passed peacefully in his sleep? This was the so-called straw death, a death on dry land without a weapon in your hand. And for these souls, the overwhelming majority, their destination was a place called Helheim. Now stop right there. Erase everything you think you know from modern pop culture. Helheim is not the Christian hell. There is no fire, no brimstone, no eternal punishment for sins. The Norse didn't really have a concept of sin in the same way. Theirs was a morality based on honor, reputation, and oaths. Helheim, often just called Hell, was something far more psychologically chilling. It was a place of neutrality, a vast gray, shadowy realm located downward and to the north. To get there, a soul had to travel a long and arduous road, the Helvegr. They would cross the roaring river Jol over a bridge paved with glittering gold, a bridge guarded by a giantess named Mgr. At the gates of the realm itself lay Garmr, a monstrous, blood-soaked hound, the Norse equivalent of Cerberus. And ruling over it all was a figure just as stark and terrifying, Hel, the daughter of Loki. Hel's appearance is the stuff of nightmares. She is described as being half-living, half-dead. One side of her body is that of a beautiful, fair-skinned woman. The other side is the blotchy, decaying blue-black flesh of a corpse. She is not a devil. She is not evil. She is a grim, stoic, and inescapable reality. She is the queen of the majority, the silent ruler of the inglorious dead. Her hall is called Lulchner, or sleet cold. Her plate is hunger, her knife is famine, her bed is sickbed, and her curtains are glimmering misfortune. Life in Helheim was, in essence, a shadow of life in Midgard. It was a continuation but muted. A world without color, without warmth, without joy. You weren't tortured, but you weren't feasting either. You simply existed. In a cold, damp, silent world surrounded by the endless masses of everyone else who didn't die a hero's death. For a culture that prized glory, fame, and a vibrant life, this quiet, forgotten eternity might have been a fate worse than any fire. It was the terror of being erased, of your story ending not with a bang, but with a slow gray fade into nothingness. Even this wasn't the end of the story. The Norse worldview was shaped by their environment, and one of the most powerful and dangerous forces in their lives was the sea. So what happened to the sailors, the fishermen, the Vikings whose ships went down in a storm, far from any battlefield? They didn't go to Valhalla, and they didn't go to Helheim. They went to the bottom of the ocean, into the hall of the sea goddess Ran and her giant husband Aegir. Aegir was a relatively benevolent host who brewed ale for the gods. Ran, his wife, was far more sinister. Her name means robber. She was a cruel, greedy goddess with a vast net, and she would drag drowning men down into the cold, dark depths. To be in Ran's net was a kinning, a poetic phrase for drowning. Her underwater hall was a cold, wet eternity, a place of perpetual gloom lit only by the glint of gold she stole from the dead. Sailors would sometimes carry gold with them, not for trade but as a tribute, hoping to appease Ran if their ship went down, to ensure better treatment in her hall. And there were even stranger fates. Some powerful individuals, it was believed, did not travel to any of these realms. Instead, they remained in their burial mounds, their hoggers. They became the Draugr, the Again-walkers. These weren't mindless zombies. They were powerful, sentient undead, retaining their intelligence and personality, but twisted by death into malevolent guardians of their tombs and treasures. They possessed superhuman strength, could shapeshift, and were notoriously difficult to kill for good. To be a Draugr was to be trapped between worlds, a terrifying force of undeath bound to the earth. So you see the pattern here. The Norse afterlife was not a moral judgment. It was a cosmic sorting system based entirely on your method of departure. It was a direct reflection of their culture's values. To die with a sword in your hand was to earn a glorious, feasting eternity preparing for the final war. To die a peaceful straw death was to be relegated to a silent, gray eternity of forgotten quiet. To die in the sea was to be stolen by a greedy goddess. Your death defined you, far more than your life ever did. It was the final, most important act of your story, and it determined which page your name would be written on in the great book of the cosmos. This intricate system, this separation of the dead into different camps, the glorious warriors, the silent masses, the drowned, the undead, it all feels like it's for a reason. It's not random. It's a mobilization, a separation of assets. Odin is building an army. Freya is building an army. Hell is presiding over a vast kingdom of spirits. Why? Why this cosmic segregation? It all points to a single, inevitable, all-consuming event. A final day when these disparate realms will matter more than ever, when the gates of Valhalla will finally swing open, and the true purpose of the Einherjar will be unleashed upon the 9 worlds. A day of doom known as Ragnarök. Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods. It is not an event that simply happens. It is a sickness that begins in the heart of the world, a prophecy that unfolds like a slow, inevitable poison. Before the swords clash and the heavens burn, the world itself must first come undone. It begins not with a bang, but with a chilling, unnatural silence. The bonds that hold society together, kinship, honor, mercy, they begin to fray. An age of axes, an age of swords, an age of shields cloven, an age of wind, an age of wolves before the world crumbles. Brothers will fight and kill brothers, and sisters' sons will violate the bonds of kinship. The world will become a hard place, full of depravity. The very concept of morality will wither and die. And then comes the cold, Fimbulwinter, the mighty winter. This isn't just a harsh season. It is the death of seasons. 3 consecutive winters will grip the 9 realms, with no summers to break them. The snow will fall from all directions, the frost will be severe, the winds sharp. The sun will offer no warmth, only a pale, mocking light in a gray sky. All across Midgard, humanity will be pushed to the brink. Crops will fail. Livestock will perish. The forests, once full of game, will fall silent. Trapped in an endless, biting cold, humanity will turn on itself. Starvation will erode all that is good, and survival will become the only law. The old, the weak, the honorable, they will be the first to go. It is a great culling, a brutal filter that leaves only the most desperate and ruthless. A world of wolves in human skin. While Midgard freezes, cosmic omens will appear in the sky. For ages, the great wolves Skull and Hati have pursued the sun and the moon across the heavens. A celestial chase, a constant reminder of the chaos nipping at the heels of order. But during the final days of Fimbulwinter, the chase will finally end. With a terrifying lunge, Skull will at last seize the sun, swallowing the source of all light and warmth. And his brother Hati will catch the moon, devouring it whole. The sky will turn black. The stars, those ancient guideposts of silver fire, will vanish from the firmament, snuffed out like candles in a gale. The 9 realms will be plunged into an absolute, terrifying darkness, a primordial void that existed before creation itself. This cosmic violence will be mirrored by the earth below. The entire world tree, Yggdrasil, will tremble from its roots to its highest branches. The mountains will shake so violently that they crumble into dust. The very ground will split open, and forests will be uprooted and cast into the sea. This cataclysmic earthquake will have a singular, horrifying purpose: to break every chain, every bond, every fetter that holds the forces of chaos in check. And the most significant of these bonds is the one that holds Loki. For centuries, the trickster god has been bound deep within a cavern, a venomous serpent dripping poison onto his face. But as the world shudders, his chains, forged by the dwarves and blessed by the gods, will shatter. Loki, his heart black with vengeance, will be free. And deep within a cave in the dark north, the monstrous wolf Fenrir, his own magical bindings snapping like thread, will finally break loose. His jaws, which can stretch from the earth to the sky, will open with a howl that promises to devour the gods themselves. In Asgard, the golden-crested rooster Gullinkambi will begin to crow, his call a frantic, desperate alarm. In Jotunheim, the realm of the giants, the red rooster Fjalar will answer. And in the dark halls of hell, a third unnamed rooster will shriek, signaling the dead to rise. The time has come. On the Bifrost Bridge, the ever-watchful guardian Heimdall, who can hear grass growing on the earth and wool growing on sheep, will see it all. He will see Loki at the helm of a ghastly ship called Naglfar, a vessel built entirely from the fingernails and toenails of the dead, sailing towards Asgard. He will see the armies of frost and fire giants marching. He will see the great serpent Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, rising from the depths of the ocean, his colossal body thrashing and churning the seas into a toxic flood, spewing venom that poisons the very air. Heimdall will see the legions of chaos converging on the realm of the gods, and he will raise the Gellerhorn to his lips. The sound that erupts from the horn is unlike any other. It is a note of pure ultimate warning, a sound so powerful it is heard in every corner of the 9 realms. It echoes in the deepest caverns of Svartalfheim and the highest peaks of Jotunheim. It shakes the halls of hell and awakens the sleeping gods in Asgard. But most importantly, that single world-shattering note blasts through the 540 doors of Valhalla. Inside the Great Hall, the endless feasting and fighting stops. For the first time in centuries, a true silence falls over the long tables. The Einherjar, the chosen slain, look at one another. This is it. This is the moment they have been waiting for, training for, dying for. There is no fear. There is no hesitation. There is only a grim, burning purpose. They drop their drinking horns, the mead spilling onto the floor. They rise as one, a single unified army of the greatest warriors who ever lived. They move to the walls where their armor and weapons, always kept polished and ready, hang waiting. The clatter of steel on steel fills the hall as hundreds of thousands of warriors don their mail, strap on their helmets, and take up their shields and axes and swords. Then the great doors of Valhalla, all 540 of them, swing open, and from each door, 800 Einherjar march out in perfect formation, their footsteps a thunderous drumbeat of impending war. They pour onto the plains of Skar, a river of shining steel and grim determination, an army so vast it seems to blot out the land. They are the ultimate defense, Odin's final desperate gamble against the encroaching darkness. At their head rides the Allfather himself. Odin, mounted on his 8-legged steed Sleipnir, wears a golden helmet and carries his spear Gungnir. But even he, the god of wisdom, does not ride straight into battle. He first rides to Mimisbrunn, the well of wisdom, to consult the severed head of the wise being Mimir one last time, seeking any final piece of knowledge, any sliver of hope in the face of absolute annihilation. The forces of order and chaos will meet on a battlefield designated by fate, a vast plain called Vigrar, said to be 100 leagues in every direction. On one side, the Aesir gods, Thor with his hammer Mjolnir, the noble Tyr, the determined Frey, stand with the endless legions of the Einherjar. On the other, a nightmare coalition. Loki, his face a mask of bitter hatred, leads the dishonorable dead from hell. The frost giants, ancient enemies of the gods, march with mountains of ice in their wake. From the south comes Surtur the fire giant, wielding a sword that burns brighter than the sun, leading the sons of Muspelheim, leaving a trail of scorched earth behind them. And in the center of it all is the monstrous wolf Fenrir, his eyes burning with ancient hunger, his foul breath steaming in the cold, dark air. The two armies face each other across the vast, trembling plain. The air is thick with poison and hate. The sky is a void of blackness. The ground shakes with the approach of monsters and gods. The final war for the fate of the cosmos is about to begin. Every prophecy has led to this moment. Every life, every death, every choice has been a step on the path to Vur. The board is set. The pieces are in motion. And the silence before the storm is finally, deafeningly, over. The first sound to break the stillness is a single clear note. A sound that carries the weight of prophecy, the sorrow of a dying age, and the terrible glory of a final war. It is the Gellerhorn. From his post at the Bifrost Bridge, the ever-watchful god Heimdall has seen the first signs. He has seen Loki's monstrous children break their bonds. He has seen the ship of the dead set sail. And so he raises the horn to his lips and blows a blast that shakes the very roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree. The sound echoes across the 9 realms. It ripples through the oceans where the world serpent stirs in its sleep. It penetrates the frozen wastes of Jotunheim, awakening the giants from their slumber. It descends into the murky depths of hell, a call to the dishonored dead. And in Asgard, in the golden-roofed hall of Valhalla, it is the sound every warrior has been waiting for. Instantly, the eternal revelry ceases. The clatter of drinking horns on wooden tables falls silent. The boisterous laughter dies in 1,000 throats. The practiced duels, the endless cycle of death and rebirth, stop mid-swing. A warrior, his spectral wound just beginning to heal, looks up from the feasting table, a piece of Saramnir's boar forgotten in his hand. Another, moments from delivering a killing blow to his shield brother, lowers his axe. A profound, solemn quiet descends upon the great hall. This is not fear. It is recognition. It is fulfillment. Every drop of mead, every battle scar, every day spent in this warrior's paradise was a prelude to this single, universe-altering moment. The Einherjar, the chosen slain, rise as one. Their eyes, once filled with merriment and the thrill of the fight, now hold a grim, unshakable resolve. This is why Odin chose them. This is the purpose of their second life. The great game is over. The real war has begun. They move with a discipline forged over centuries of constant combat. There is no chaos, no panic. Only the swift, efficient motions of a professional army preparing for its ultimate campaign. They turn from the feasting tables and stride toward the walls, where their armor and weapons hang. The dents in their helmets, the nicks in their shields, the cracks in their mail. All the damage from the day's training vanish. Their war gear becomes whole, gleaming as if freshly forged. The magic of Valhalla, once used for endless sport, now serves its true function: to equip the army of the gods for the end of the world. Each warrior dons his gear. The sound is a rising thunder, not of individual men, but of a single colossal entity coming to life. A symphony of buckling leather, cinching mail, and the cold, sharp shing of a million swords being drawn from their scabbards. They are no longer just heroes of Midgard. They are Odin's legion, the bulwark against oblivion. Then the great doors of Valhalla, all 540 of them, swing open. They open not to the familiar sight of Asgard's golden streets, but to the blood-reddened sky of Ragnarök. Through each massive gateway, the Einherjar begin to march, 800 warriors abreast. It is a sight that defies mortal comprehension. From a single building pours forth an army vast enough to choke the plains of existence. It is a torrent of steel and iron, a river of humanity's greatest fighters, flowing out to meet the tide of chaos. Kings march next to farmers, Vikings next to Roman legionaries, Saxon Huskarls next to forgotten heroes whose names are no longer spoken in the world of men. Their individual stories, their former allegiances, are meaningless now. They are united by a single oath sworn to a single god, for a single final battle. At their head rides the Allfather himself. Odin, mounted on his 8-legged steed Sleipnir, wears not his wanderer's cloak but a gleaming golden helmet and coat of mail. In his hand is his spear, Gungnir, which never misses its mark. His 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin, fly ahead, dark specks against the dying sky, bringing him news from the front lines of a crumbling cosmos. The gods themselves are a fearsome sight. Thor stands ready, his iron gloves gripping the handle of Mjolnir so tightly his knuckles are white. His face is a mask of fury, his eyes crackling with lightning as he stares toward the horizon, waiting for the arrival of his ancient nemesis, Jormungandr. The noble Tyr, the one-handed god of justice, takes his place in the line, his shield on his one arm, his sword in his one hand, his gaze fixed on the monstrous hound Garmr, the beast he is fated to fight. And then there is Freyr, the beautiful god of sun and fertility. He is forced to face the battle without his magic sword, which he gave away long ago for the love of a giantess. In his hand is a simple stag's antler, a pathetic weapon against the coming fire, but he does not shrink. He will face his doom, the fire giant Surtur, with the courage of a god. The Aesir and the Einherjar form a single, magnificent, and terrible line of defense. They are the army of order, the final stand of the gods. But from the east, the forces of chaos gather, a tide of nightmares made real. The great ship Naglfar, built entirely from the uncut fingernails and toenails of the dead, has been freed from its moorings by the world-shaking floods. At its helm stands Loki, his silver tongue now silent, his face a canvas of pure malice, finally unshackled from his torment. Behind him are the legions of frost giants from Jotunheim, their bodies like mountains of ice, their breath a killing frost, their hearts filled with an ancient hatred for the gods of Asgard. From the depths of the ocean, the Midgard serpent Jormungandr rises. His colossal body uncoils, spanning the horizon, and as he thrashes toward the shore, he spews black venom into the air and whips the seas into a cataclysmic fury. And from the land itself comes the most terrifying of all. The great wolf Fenrir, his chains of Gleipnir finally shattered, now runs free. His lower jaw scrapes against the ground while his upper jaw pushes against the sky, and he would open it wider if there were more room. Fire burns from his eyes and nostrils. He is an engine of pure destruction, a gaping maw of hunger ready to devour the sun, the moon, and the All-Father himself. The two armies converge on a plain called Valhalla, the field of battle. The prophecies say it is 100 leagues in every direction, and yet it seems barely large enough to contain the sheer scale of the forces now assembled. On one side, the gleaming gold and steel of Asgard, a disciplined line of gods and heroes, the last light of a darkening world. On the other, a roiling, chaotic mass of giants, monsters, and the damned, a formless horde driven by nothing but the desire to unmake creation. The ground trembles. The sky weeps blood. For a moment that stretches into an eternity, the two armies face each other across the plain. There are no speeches, no final negotiations. Every word that could be said has been said. Every choice that could be made has been made. There is only the coming storm. Then, with a roar that is the sum of all the rage and fear in the universe, the charge begins. The Einherjar, Odin's chosen, surge forward. After centuries of waiting, of feasting and training, they finally get their wish. A battle worthy of their skill, a death worthy of a saga. They crash into the front lines of the frost giants with the force of a collapsing star. The sound of the impact is the sound of worlds breaking. Steel shatters against icy flesh. The war cries of heroes are met by the guttural roars of monsters. The field of Valhalla becomes a maelstrom of violence, a canvas upon which the final bloody chapter of the Norse cosmos will be painted. And amidst the chaos of the common soldiery, the great champions seek each other out, drawn together by the inescapable pull of destiny. Heimdall and Loki, the Watcher and the Trickster, rush to meet one another, their ancient rivalry to be settled in a final fatal embrace. Thor leaps from his chariot, his hammer held high, and strides toward the venom-spewing serpent that poisons the sea and sky. And Odin, the Allfather, king of Asgard, spurs Sleipnir forward, his spear Gungnir leveled, charging directly, unflinchingly, into the path of the all-devouring wolf Fenrir. The duels of the gods have begun, and with them the very end of all things. The wolf's jaws are a gateway to oblivion, stretching from the scorched earth to the soot-black sky. Inside is not flesh and bone, but a universe of hunger, a constellation of teeth. And into this gateway Odin, the Allfather, rides. He does not hesitate. For all his magic, for all his wisdom gleaned from a sacrificed eye and a hanging death, he knows this is an unavoidable fate. A thread woven by the Norns that cannot be uncut. Gungnir, the spear that never misses, flies true. But it is like throwing a pebble into a black hole. It is simply consumed. Sleipnir, the greatest of all horses, screams as the impossible jaws clamp shut, and in a single horrific moment of cosmic violence, the king of Asgard, the god of wisdom, war, and death, is gone, swallowed whole, erased from the battlefield. For a heartbeat, the world holds its breath. The clash of steel, the roar of giants, the shriek of monsters, it all fades into a deafening silence. The Einherjar, Odin's chosen, 1,000,000 strong, their golden armor now stained with blood and ash, see what has happened. Their god, the one who welcomed them into his hall, the one who promised them this final, glorious battle, has fallen. This is the moment of ultimate despair, the moment a lesser army would break and scatter. But these are not lesser men. These are the spirits of the greatest warriors who ever lived. Their grief does not manifest as fear. It erupts as rage. A single unified roar tears across the plain of Valhalla, a sound of pure, undiluted fury that shakes the foundations of the dying worlds. They did not come here to survive. They came here to die for a cause, and the death of their king has not ended that cause, it has sanctified it. With the sound of a tidal wave made of steel, they charge, no longer fighting a battle, but waging a bloody, hopeless, and magnificent vengeance. As the armies of Valhalla crash into the legions of hell, the very sky splits apart. A storm of impossible violence rages, but this is no natural tempest. High above, Thor, Odin's mighty son, finally confronts his own destiny. The Midgard serpent, Jormungandr, has risen from the depths, so vast its body coils around the entirety of the mortal world. It thrashes and the oceans boil, rising up in continent-sized waves that scour the land clean. Venom, black and acidic, rains from the sky, dissolving flesh and stone alike. Thor, standing on the edge of a crumbling cliff, his red beard whipping in the gale, roars a challenge that is answered by a hiss that could deafen a god. He swings Mjolnir, the hammer that has defended gods and men for millennia. The first blow cracks the serpent's impenetrable scales, a sound like a mountain breaking in two. The serpent strikes back, its fangs missing the god by inches but leveling a mountain range behind him. Thor leaps, Mjolnir held high, lightning arcing from the heavens to wreath it in pure power. He brings it down one last time upon the serpent's colossal head. The skull implodes. The beast convulses in a final, world-shattering agony, and then goes still. Thor has won. The ancient enemy is slain. He stands breathing heavily, the victor. But the victory is hollow. A torrent of black venom, ejected from the serpent's dying mouth, has drenched him. He stumbles back, his legendary strength failing him. He feels the poison coursing through his veins, a fire that no god can quench. He drops Mjolnir. He takes one step, then two. He manages 9 paces, a final defiant act of will, before his legs buckle. Thor, the strongest of the Aesir, the champion of Midgard, collapses onto the poisoned earth and dies. The protector of humanity is gone. On another part of the field, a different kind of fire rages. Surtur, the giant from Muspelheim, wades through the battle, his flaming sword a terrible sun in the gloom. It cuts through armor, flesh, and bone as if they were mist. And standing before him is Freyr, the god of sunshine, peace, and fertility. But Freyr is unarmed. He gave his magic, self-fighting sword away, a priceless gift in exchange for the love of the giantess Geir. A choice made in a time of peace, now costing him everything in a time of war. He holds nothing but a stag's antler, a symbol of the vibrant life he once commanded. He does not run. He charges the fire giant, a desperate, hopeless act of courage. It is a battle between creation and destruction, summer and the endless burning end. But an antler is no match for a star-forged blade. Surtur's sword sweeps down and Freyr, the noble god of Vanir, is cloven in two. As he falls, the last warmth seems to flee from the world. The great duels of fate are unfolding all across the plain. The air shimmers near the shattered remains of the Bifrost Bridge. Here, 2 ancient enemies meet for the last time. Heimdall, the white god, the ever-vigilant guardian of Asgard, his Horngillerhorn now silent at his side. And facing him is Loki, the trickster, the betrayer, the catalyst for this entire apocalypse, his face a mask of bitter triumph. There are no words between them. Their hatred is too old, too deep. They are the antithesis of one another. Perfect order against absolute chaos. They launch themselves at each other in a blur of motion. Heimdall's sword finds Loki's heart, just as Loki's dagger slides under Heimdall's ribs. They fall together, locked in a final, fatal embrace, their mutual destruction a fitting symbol for the unraveling cosmos. The Guardian is gone. The great deceiver is silenced. And still the prophecies play out. Tyr, the one-handed god of justice, the bravest of them all, confronts Garmr, the monstrous blood-soaked hound of Helheim. Tyr once sacrificed his hand to bind the wolf Fenrir, a sacrifice made to uphold the law. Now he gives the rest of himself to destroy this beast of chaos. They tear at each other with primal ferocity, a whirlwind of claw and steel. In the end, they too inflict mortal wounds upon each other. Tyr succeeds in killing the hound, but he is savaged beyond recovery. He collapses, his life's blood pooling on the ground, his duty finally done. The god of justice is gone. The world is now a symphony of endings. The sun and moon are gone, devoured by the wolf's skull and Hati. The stars have fallen from the sky like dying embers. The earth shudders and groans, breaking apart, sinking into the boiling seas. And over it all is Surtur. With the gods fallen and the armies in disarray, he fulfills his ultimate purpose. He brandishes his flaming sword, and a tide of all-consuming fire sweeps across the 9 realms. It burns the living and the dead. It burns the fields of Asgard and the towers of Jotunheim. It burns Yggdrasil itself, the great world tree, its leaves turning to ash, its roots smoldering. This is not just a battle anymore. It is a cleansing, a universal firestorm reducing all of creation to nothing but smoke and shadow. The twilight of the gods is complete. But even in absolute annihilation, one story is not yet finished. Through the fire and the ruin, a single figure walks untouched by the flames. He is Vidar, son of Odin, the silent god. He has watched his father, the Allfather, be consumed. He has seen the greatest of his kin fall. He says nothing. He has never been a god of words. He is a god of action. On his foot, he wears a massive boot, one crafted from all the scraps of leather that mortal shoemakers have discarded throughout history, a piece of Midgard itself. He walks with a heavy, deliberate tread, his eyes fixed on a single target. Fenrir, the great wolf, glutted and triumphant from the death of a king, has not yet noticed the silent god approaching. The god of vengeance has come to claim his due. On Vidar's foot is a shoe unlike any other in the 9 realms. It is a thing of ages, cobbled together from the scraps and shavings of leather cut by every shoemaker since the beginning of time. Every sliver of hide a son trimmed from his father's shoe, every discarded piece from a new pair made for a child, was saved, an unspoken offering to the silent god. It is a boot made of generations of human work, imbued with a strength that defies the divine. This is the weapon he has prepared his entire life to wield. With a roar that is not a word but a pure expression of grief and fury, Vidar lunges. He plants his legendary shoe into Fenrir's lower jaw, forcing the beast's maw open. The thick, ancient leather holds fast against the fangs that devoured the Allfather. Fenrir thrashes, its world-ending howl turning into a choked gargle. But the god does not yield. Vidar reaches up, his hands gripping the wolf's upper jaw. He is the god of silence, but the sound he makes now is the sound of reality tearing. With all the strength of a son avenging his father, he pulls. Muscle, sinew, and bone give way. The great wolf's jaw is ripped asunder, its foul life spilling out onto the blood-soaked plains of Vigrid. The prophecy is fulfilled. The devourer is itself destroyed. Vengeance is absolute. Elsewhere on the battlefield, the final duels play out their grim poetry. Heimdall, the white god, guardian of the Bifrost, finally meets his nemesis. Loki, the trickster, the agent of chaos, his face a mask of malicious glee, engages the Watchmen in a furious battle. They are perfect opposites, order and chaos, duty and betrayal. They dance a final, fatal waltz, and in a flash of steel and a spray of blood, they mortally wound one another, falling together into the dust, their ancient enmity finally silenced by mutual destruction. And then the thunder rolls for the last time. Thor, his face grim, his beard caked with the blood of giants, confronts his own fated doom. Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, risen from the depths. The serpent is so vast it encircles the world, and now it rears its venomous head, spewing poison that blackens the sky. Thor, the champion of mankind, does not hesitate. He swings Mjolnir, the mighty hammer, in a great arc. The blow lands with the force of a falling mountain, crushing the serpent's skull. The beast writhes in its death throes, its massive body collapsing and crashing into the sea, sending tidal waves to scour the shores of the world. Thor has won. He has slain the World Eater. But as he stands victorious, he staggers. Black venom spewed from the serpent's dying mouth drips from his face. He takes one step, then 9 paces in all. And then the strongest of all the gods, the great protector of Midgard, collapses and dies, his hammer falling from his grasp. With the fall of its greatest champions, the world itself begins to die. The sun, once a golden chariot, turns black, its light extinguished. The stars, those ancient signposts in the heavens, wink out and vanish, leaving only an empty, suffocating darkness. The earth groans in its final agony and begins to sink beneath the churning, poison-filled sea. And from the south comes Surtur, the giant of fire, wielding a sword brighter than the sun itself. He sweeps his blade across creation, and the world tree Yggdrasil, the very axis of the cosmos, shudders and burns. Fire consumes everything. The halls of Asgard, the fields of Midgard, the depths of hell. All is ash, all is silence. The age of gods and men is over. The Einherjar of Valhalla have fought their final battle. Their purpose is fulfilled. An age passes in the void, and then slowly something new begins. Out of the waters a new earth rises. It is green and beautiful and pure. Waterfalls cascade down mountains that have never known the tread of giants. The fields are fertile, and crops grow untended. The poison has been washed away. It is a world reborn. And it is not empty. From the underworld of hell, two figures emerge blinking in the new sun. It is Baldur, the beautiful god, and his blind brother Einherjar. Their tragic feud finally resolved in death and rebirth. They are joined by Odin's avenging sons, the mighty Vidar and Valle, who survived the fire and the flood. And from the wreckage of the old world, two more gods arrive. They are Me and Magni, the sons of Thor. And between them they carry their father's legacy, the hammer Mjolnir, which was too heavy for even the god of thunder to lift in his youth, but which they now carry with ease. The age of wrath and strength begins anew. They travel to the field of Idavol, where Asgard once stood. And there, scattered in the grass, they find the golden playing pieces the Aesir used in their glory days, a final beautiful memory of the world that was. They sit and they speak of the past, of Odin's wisdom and Thor's might, of the great battle and the sacrifice that made this new world possible. And they are not the only survivors. Hidden deep within the trunk of the world tree, in a place called the Wood of Hordmimir, two humans had taken refuge from Surtur's fire. Their names are Lif and Lifracer, life and will to live. They survived by drinking the morning dew, and from them, a new race of mankind will spring forth to populate this gentle, peaceful world. But what of Valhalla? What of the great hall of the slain? Its purpose is complete. Its warriors have met their destiny. In this new world there is no need for an eternal army. Instead, the sagas speak of a new hall, a place called Gimel. It stands where the heavens and earth meet, roofed with gold, a hall brighter than the sun. And to this place will come the righteous and the good, to live in peace and joy for all eternity. It is not a reward for a glorious death in battle, but for a life lived well. The age of the warrior has passed. The age of peace has begun. And so we come to the end of our journey, and to the true meaning of Valhalla. It was never a paradise. It was not a final reward. It was a cosmic waiting room, a divine barracks for an army training for a war the gods already knew they were destined to lose. The prophecies were clear. Odin would be eaten, Thor would fall, and the world would burn. So why fight? Why gather the greatest warriors in history for a hopeless cause? Because the value was not in the victory. The value was in the struggle. The glory was in the defiance. Valhalla represents one of the most powerful ideas in human mythology. That true honor is found in facing your inevitable doom not with despair, but with courage. It's about looking into the abyss and refusing to blink. It's about knowing the wolf is at the door, and choosing to sharpen your sword anyway. The Einherjar did not fight for a promise of eternal life, but for the chance to stand with their gods on the final day, to hold the line against chaos for as long as they could, and to make their end a glorious one. Their sacrifice was not in vain. It was their struggle, their glorious defeat, that cleansed the world and allowed life to begin anew. The story of Valhalla is a testament to the warrior spirit, not just on the battlefield, but in the heart of humanity. It teaches us that some things are worth fighting for, even when defeat is certain. It reminds us that our legacy is not defined by whether we win or lose, but by how we choose to face our final battle. It is the echo of a defiant roar against the coming night, a promise that even in the face of the end, there is honor, there is purpose, and there is glory.